Hello BookTube, welcome to a book review. Today I would like to talk about Depresso by Brick. This is a bit shiny, so I'm not going to hold it up for the whole video, I'm sure you won't mind. Depresso is a graphic memoir by a cartoonist called Brick. Having depression myself, it's always interesting to me to read about other people's experiences because I think they're so different that it's really interesting to see another person's perspective. I also think that depression isn't talked about enough and that it's really important that we at least make attempts to try to communicate with each other about what it means and how it is experienced. To read, this book wasn't perfect. It wasn't overly entertaining and the art style and the sense of humour were not particularly my cup of tea. There was a big chunk at the beginning which was very relatable. I read it and a friend read it and we both saw features in there that sort of we recognised as parts of depression that are really hard to communicate. And in that way, actually, being a cartoonist of this kind of style does help to kind of put across certain metaphors that are the easiest way to explain what you're going through, and that is really valid and important. So I appreciate this book existing more than I enjoyed it. One thing in particular about this book that I can kind of connect to is that the author was kind of anti-medication. He didn't expect to like being on medication and he decides to come off it at one point because he weighs up the pros and cons and decides that spiritually he would be better off the medication eventually. And he does describe the physical symptoms of withdrawal, which are quite great, or can be quite great. Personally, I was raised on homotherapy and alternative medicine, so I can really relate to not believing in spiritually anyway, not being able to really invest wholeheartedly in pills, and so having deep concerns about the long-term effects of being on medication, which he does talk about. There are pages and pages and pages of side effects of a lot of medications for long-term conditions, and we're very behind in modern science. It's kind of a suck it and see trial and error method of finding what works for you, which is what he describes. In the book he states that he went cold turkey from his medicine. This is something that I would never recommend. I've done it a couple of times and it was fucking awful. So if you are depressed, if you are on antidepressants like citalopram or whatever it is, please don't just go cold turkey. Talk to your doctor, find a way of weaning yourself off them that will work for you gently and won't wreck you, because you'll set yourself further back. Brick is a political cartoonist, and this is a good example of a page where his sort of mixed media communicates political commentary and his art style mixed in with photography. And this is a page that kind of demonstrates the metaphorical ways of expressing how depression can react with you, how you can experience it. Overall, it was too long for what it was trying to say. It repeated itself quite a bit, and yes, depression comes in cycles, it comes in waves, so a depressed life repeats itself in a way, but it kind of revisited something it had already done in the story, and used sort of similar wording as well, so that got a bit tired for me. It ended on a happy note, which after all those pages of seeing, you know, the repetition and the struggle and the cycle, that I can relate to, and that I know, and that I kind of think, yes, that's important to communicate to people about depression because that's how it is always there. So to end it on a happy note felt a bit wrong, felt a bit misleading to me, and kind of almost undid the point of the novel. It didn't do that really, but I didn't want to end on a happy note. I care what people say about depression, and Maybe that's just me, but in my experience, in all my knowledge, depression is a lifelong thing. It's a condition, and you're prone or you're not, but you can't just banish it. And I don't even believe that he'd gone through a sort of stage of enlightenment so great that his depression wouldn't come back. Having said all that, I would definitely recommend giving this book a shot. It's called Depresso, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Embrace Being Bonkers, and it's by the cartoonist called Brick. I got this from my local library, so it is widely available, and it communicates some things about depression that people who don't have depression should probably know. It's very helpful. And if you do have depression but haven't read so much around it and haven't heard other people's accounts, maybe this is worth a shot too, because it will give you something to bounce off. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.